Broadcasting from the Business RadioX studios, it's time for Business Leaders Radio. Now, here's your host, John Ray.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Business Leaders Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, this is going to be a good one. We've got Wendy Weiss with us, and Wendy is the founder of TechTime. Wendy, welcome.
Thank you so much, John, for having me on your show.
Hey, it's a pleasure, and I've been looking forward to this. Let's get into it quickly. Let's let everybody know who you are and how you're serving folks out there.
Absolutely. So, again, my name is Wendy Weiss, and I'm founder of TechTime. My company is based in New York. Just to give you a little background on myself, I worked on Wall Street most of my career and in a business development role for a financial services company. And I sold data into asset managers, hedge funds, corporations. And doing that for about 20 years, I decided to make a move and go on my own and started TechTime. So basically what TechTime is, we assist individuals conduct classes and businesses on the everyday use of your technological devices. So anywhere from your iPhone, your Mac, your iPad, just teaching you how to email, attachments, photos, staying in touch with loved ones, FaceTime. So I would say my target market is 55 and over.
That's awesome work. Before we dive deeper there, Wendy, let's talk a little bit more about your journey, if you don't mind, because a lot of folks are looking at second stage careers, repurposing their lives, however you want to put it. The Great Resignations, we're hearing a lot about that. I mean, you've been through some iteration of that and leaving Wall Street, pretty fast-paced kind of career, into something that's pretty ground level, helping people, right? I mean, talk about what I guess the calculus you went through yourself in making that change, and give advice to folks that are thinking about it as well.
So to be perfectly blunt with you, it's a personal story. I had a great career on Wall Street, and due to some life-changing events, I lost my husband. And I had to give up my career to care for him. And unfortunately, he passed, and I had to decide what I wanted to do. I wasn't the same person who I was, so I couldn't go back to corporate America. Mentally, I couldn't handle it. Physically, I live out in the suburbs, so to commute into Manhattan, it's 3 hours a day, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I always was brainstorming with my kids. We were big Shark Tank fans, and we always wanted to come up with a business. And, due to working in the corporate environment, I really had all the software programs, devices accessible to me. And I do truly believe that technology is inborn. So basically, we came up with an idea to assist people, using their devices and helping them and staying in touch with family, because especially with the pandemic, it was just so important. So that's really how I got started. Just a little brainstorming, researching, seeing my parents suffer with technology. And that's how the business got started.
Great story. You mentioned there that you think technology is inborn. What do you mean by that?
So I truly believe that you like to, number one, learn. And it's an inquisitive side of you. And as we age, I think it's very important to learn something new every day. But especially the children that are, 2-3 years old, this is just part of their everyday lives. It wasn't for me, but I just think it just came easier to me because I enjoyed using it. So that's what I mean by inborn. I think you have to really like something and have a passion to do so. So that's what I mean by inborn.
And how do you instill that passion in someone that's 55 and older and didn't grow up with the kind of technology we deal with today?
You need a lot of patience, first of all. That's number one.
Right.
Patience. Patience is virtue, right?
Sure.
Yes, people get very frustrated if they were not exposed to technology in their younger years. They're retired teachers, maybe policemen, firemen, even doctors. Think about attorneys. They all had secretaries, and they did everything for them. And now it's a totally different world. It's really a luxury to have a secretary these days, and so you have to be self-sufficient. So you just have to have a lot of patience and just sit with them quietly. I try to give them tips and tricks. If their fingers are too big for their device, I urge them to use the microphone to be able to speak into the device. That's very helpful. Sometimes some of them have accents, so the device doesn't really pick up their native language. So that's a little frustrating, but I just tell them to speak slowly and clearly.
I'm shocked to hear that some of your clients may have accents, but
Living in New York.
Yeah, and folks, you have to know, listeners, that Wendy and I had a pre-show call. We were joking with each other about our respective accents, so that's where that comes from. But
what accent?
Yeah, exactly. What accent, right? And I'm here to tell you that I use that voice feature, and it recognizes my accent, and I'm sure it recognizes yours. So, it's people should not be scared off by that, for sure. But let's talk about, I guess the question I'll be glad when I don't have to ask anymore, which is about the pandemic and kind of how that worked for you, because suddenly a lot of folks had to utilize a lot more technology than maybe they were used to using prior to the pandemic.
Absolutely. And it was a mad rush. Many of my clients, I would go and see in person, and of course that came to a halt. And I had to walk them through installing Zoom. So either on their iPhone, their iPad, their Mac, and this was all done over the phone. So it was very challenging to walk them to go to the Apple Store, download the app, go through the steps to install it. And then I would send them a link once we got the application installed, and we would Zoom. And Zoom also has a feature in it which allows me to take over their workstation, as well as I could image my iPhone, and training continued seamlessly. So the challenge was just getting people on Zoom, but once Zoom was installed, it was fine. People were able to participate in exercises, with the senior center or their personal trainers, or interact with family, loved ones. FaceTime was another popular app that I walked through people, and it was just so important that people would see their family and friends and interact over technology platforms. Sure.
Now, you helped folks with Zoom, you helped folks with FaceTime. Let's talk about, I guess, some of the other aid that you provide in terms of technology apps or devices, what have you.
So, I get a lot of questions, especially during the pandemic, on food delivery services. And I don't know if you're familiar with Instacart.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people signed up for Instacart. They were able to pick and choose the supermarket or department store, Target, Walmart. and have items delivered. So that was a very popular app that we used. Amazon was huge. I mean, everybody has Amazon and Prime. And another interesting app that was very popular was setting up Spotify, so people could listen to music, and podcasts. It was very soothing and therapeutic. So, people weren't sleeping, so I pointed them to different apps that would, calming. So, it was challenging for everybody in some way.
And let's talk specifically, Wendy, about the iPhone, because that's still the number one phone, mobile device out there, if you will. What do people ask you the most about the iPhone?
So, when I do a lot of classes, I do a class on the hidden gems of the iPhone. And during the pandemic, we all still had to stay in touch with our accountants and attorneys, and they needed documents. They needed 1099s. They needed bank statements for us to file our taxes. So our iPhone has a built-in scanner, and that's under the Notes feature. So basically, it scans a document and turns it into a PDF file. And there's also a built-in signature in your iPhone, and you could just use your finger to write out your name and attach it to the document, and you could email it to your relevant accountant's attorney. And not many people know that the iPhone has a built-in scanner. Many people download, third-party apps. So this is a huge feature in the iPhone that's hidden away.
Mm. And these things constantly change, right? I mean, more features are added. So, and you're not necessarily, you keep up with it, but folks like me don't. And that's where you have a lot of value to folks like me and others.
Yes, absolutely. Apple releases different versions of software a couple times a year, and that's where all these new features are. I just posted something on LinkedIn today, all the features of Siri. You don't have to touch your iPhone. You could just speak into it, and she's a personal assistant, or he, however you set up Siri. You could ask Siri to create a reminder for you to take your medication. You could create a shopping list. She could translate for you. If you were in another country and you wanted to know how to say, what's the best restaurant in town in Spanish, you could just ask Siri and she'll tell you. So she's an amazing tool. She could read emails for you. She could write emails for you. You would just give her the email address and just dictate away.
Wow. Wendy Weiss is with us, and she is founder of TechTime. So, Wendy, let's talk about encouraging people to stay in touch with loved ones and how you do that.
So, especially during the pandemic, Zoom was number one. Mm-hmm. Families were having Zoom calls at least once a week. People were playing cards, mahjong, all via Zoom. They were sitting around the table with their laptop or iPad going. This way they got to see each other. So again, using FaceTime, Zoom, it was so important for people to see each other. It was one thing speaking on the phone, but, the actual eye contact to see a loved one, especially during the holidays. We all missed out on Christmas and Easter and so many milestones, high school graduations. I mean, it was rough for everybody, weddings, engagement parties. So there were many online events.
And is that what piece of that continues, I guess, as we go into a different stage of wherever we are. I won't say after the pandemic, but wherever we are in all this. I mean, how does that communications, how do you see it continuing?
In my business, I see it continuing, absolutely. And I see in the world it's going to continue. Many places are still very cautious with the pandemic right now. There are still many online classes offered. In New York, some of the senior centers are not open, so the classes that they offer are still via Zoom. And with the winter approaching and the different strains of the virus out there, I truly believe we're going to be in a cautious mode, and using Zoom or Teams, another app that communicates online, it's still going to be prevalent.
Wendy Weiss is with us, folks. She's the founder of TechTime. So something tells me that a lot of people that listen to our interview and think we're just talking about technology for grandma or, great Aunt May or whatever. When we were talking before the show, you talked to me about real business applications that you're helping business owners with that they really need help with in their business or their practice. Share some of those stories with us and how you help.
Yeah, sure. So I work with a very big nursery, a florist here on Long Island, and many of their clients so-called work out of the car. They're always on the road and they need to stay in touch. So there's many applications they could use. So for example, if a contract comes in, again, they could use the iPhone scanner or they could use DocuSign. There's applications out there that could tell you what kind of flowers you are looking at. So it really depends on the client, and I try to focus on the kind of client I work with and help them. This client also has they have clients and they want somebody to answer their phones internally. And there's a company based in the Midwest. I don't recall the name of it, but they answer your phones on behalf of you. So they're live operators, and it's an app. And then they text you or email you that you have a message or so-and-so called from this company. Please give them a call back. And you could be on the golf course and get this message. So there's so many apps out there that help small businesses as well.
And those of us that are, fairly conversant, we'll say, in a lot of basic technology, maybe don't appreciate how many businesses and business owners are out there that are using fairly old ways to communicate. And you were mentioning one professional services person who was struggling with PDFs and attaching those to emails, I think, if I recall that right.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people don't even have an email account. So, I would go in there and show them how to create, I would set them up with an email account, show them how to attach a file, how to attach a picture, either via an email or a text, and share it with a loved one. Things that you and I take for granted. It's not easy for a person of a certain age who has not been exposed to technology. They hear all their friends are exchanging pictures of the grandchildren, as well as social media. And that's another topic that I dabble in. Facebook is a very powerful tool to communicate, share pictures and photos, on Facebook with friends and family, and share your lives, and not too much information, because it's very dangerous for the hackers out there. And that's another topic of discussion, probably at another time. But you have to be careful not to post too much personal information.
Yeah, I was going to go there. Man, maybe we can cover that briefly. And yeah, you're right. We could go a whole show with something like cybersecurity, but talk about how you counsel folks that are, let's say, technology rookies about the dangers that are out there in the cyber world, and how easily it is that they can get hacked or their identity stolen, what have you.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to be cautious. When you get an email from somebody that you really don't know, you have to look at the actual email address. You have to, just put your cursor over it. And if it looks weird, the ending typically is like a .com. If it's not, and it doesn't make sense, don't click on it, don't open it, just delete it. And the same applies to texts. We're now getting hacked via text coming in. Again, if the number looks weird or the person, just delete it. Phone calls. We're getting a lot of robocalls, coming from different countries. Do not answer your phone. If it's an important call, let it go to voicemail, and you could always listen to it. The iPhone has the ability to block callers, so you could block numbers. So you just really have to be diligent. If you do online banking and you get an email from the bank, don't click on any links. Go directly to the website and type in the URL.
Great advice from Wendy Weiss, and she is the founder of TechTime. So, Wendy, let's talk about how you work with someone. And I usually ask the question, how does someone know they need your service? I think that's fairly obvious, that they're frustrated with their technology, whatever that is. I think the answer to that question is fairly obvious. But I get in touch with you and to help with my problems. How does that conversation go, and how do you work with people?
Well, the most important is to focus on their wants and needs, what they want to learn out of the device. If they tell me that they just want to learn how to email and text and attach photos, that's what we work on. If they really want to learn, I'll take them through the ins and outs of the phone. I try to make their lives as simple as possible. Again, I mentioned Siri, what a useful app that is. Again, you could dictate, you could use your microphone. The iPhone, the iPad are very, very powerful tools. There's notes, where you could create a note. You could put a password on a note, if you wanted to, keep some personal information on that. And you just have to remember that password. Mm-hmm. Also, another thing I do, with my clients is, everybody has passwords, and I'll walk into a client and I'll say to them, what's your Apple ID? What's your Apple ID password? And of course they don't know it, or it's written down on a little sticky, the size of an inch. And there's like 10 different stickies all over the computer with different passcodes. Mm-hmm. And I really try to organize them, because we're living in a digital world. We are username and password driven, and we have to keep track of all this information in a safe place. So when I see how disorganized they are, I have something that I create called digitizing your information. And it's basically taking all user IDs, your passwords, any personal information you have. So if you have a mortgage and you pay it online, real estate taxes, bank accounts, investment accounts, I organize it, and it's all in a spreadsheet. We password protect it. We print it out. We put it in a safe place. Sometimes we incorporated it to the will. But it's a document that's there for your loved ones.
Estate attorneys, pay attention.
Exactly.
Right. Wendy, there's an added service that's a good thing to be offering there with via Wendy. So that's really awesome, Wendy. Great work. Yeah. So this has been great, and I can't imagine that there aren't some folks that want to be in touch and learn more about your services, and whether it's for their business or personal. So let's get to the most important question, which is how they can be in touch with you and engage.
Sure. So I have a website, and it's all one word, TechTimeTutor.com. And my email address is info@TechTimeTutor.com. And I also have a YouTube channel, TechTime Tutor, and a Facebook page, TechTime, as well as a Twitter handle, TechTime. So there's various ways to reach out to me.
Terrific. Wendy Weiss, folks. She is with TechTime, the founder of TechTime. Wendy, this has been terrific. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
John, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure,
Yeah.
and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Hey, folks, just a quick reminder. If you want to see the archive of our shows here, Business Leaders Radio, just go to businessleadersradio.com. We're on all the major podcast apps. And if you don't know how to access on your podcast app, call Wendy. She can help you. She knows how to help you. So, but seriously, we're on all the major podcast apps. So we would love it if you would subscribe to the show and give us a 5-star review. Now that's a bold request, but it's not about me. It's not about Business Radio X. It's about our great guests like Wendy, who are doing great work, and their services deserve to be highlighted and found, and we want them to be found by folks looking for what they do. So if you could help us in that regard, we would appreciate it. So for my guest, Wendy Weiss, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on Business Leaders Radio.